already. Good evening, everyone. I want to call the meeting to order for the Oxnard Public Works and Transportation Committee for January 28th, 2025. Madam Clerk, may we have the roll call and posting of the agenda followed by a pledge of allegiance and a brief moment of silence. I learned today that one of our long-time police officers, Gene Rodriguez, passed away, so we'll take a moment of silence for him.
Chair, excuse me, Chair MacArthur.
Here.
Committee Member Basua.
Here.
Committee Member Teran.
Here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted in the kiosk at City Hall, the Oxnard Public Library, the city administrative offices, and on the city's website on Thursday, January 21st.
Thank you. Councilwoman Basua, do you want to lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready? Again.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. The next item on the agenda is that for public comments for items not on the agenda. At this time, a person may address the legislative body on only on matters not appearing on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the legislative body. Speakers' requests shall be submitted as set forth on the first page of the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. After 30 minutes, if all speakers have not had an opportunity to speak, the remaining speakers will be given an opportunity to speak prior to the adjournment of the meeting. The legislative body cannot enter into a detailed discussion or take action on any items presented during public comments at this time. Such items may be only referred to the city manager for scheduled on a subsequent agenda for discussion. Persons wishing to speak on public hearing items should do so at this time. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
We have one speaker.
This is Benjamin? Oh, I'm sorry, Benjamin. Thank you for your time.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Benjamin Crompart. I live over in the Oxnard Shores area. I'll obviously keep this brief. So I was encouraged by some friends and colleagues to stop by and just share some observations and see what we can do if there's anything that can be done.
Absolutely.
So I do a lot of bicycling and motorcycling on my commutes. And what I wanted to notice, I actually submitted a copy of this to the clerk for the record. Just a sheet. It probably makes more sense to follow along. So inductive loops, obviously, are traffic signals. They're calibrated and set in certain ways to look for which vehicles are coming along. On motorcycles, a lot of times they don't notice that there's a vehicle there. So I just put forth a list of a couple of examples of maybe intersections where those could be recalibrated or reset. Oftentimes they just don't trigger for me going through it. And I'm sure I'm not the only person who has that occur. So the only other option is to run the light. It's a generally unsafe situation, but there are ways to get through it. Anyway, I just wrote down those three examples: eastbound, westbound Woolley at Victoria, eastbound, westbound Woolley at Harbor, and northbound Rice at Woolley. So those are just the list of a couple that I had examples for. Another observation was on the last slide of the copy, the North Harbor and West Gonzales Road intersection. I just put forth a small recommendation about possible reworking of how the intersection works. Oftentimes traffic backs up all the way back to the Olives Park intersection. So it was just a small recommendation for adjustment. I don't know if I need to step through each of the steps since it's been submitted. If that's acceptable, then I'll move on. All right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Benjamin, for coming in and for providing your comment. Thank you. If there are no further comments, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. And the only item is approval of the minutes for the December 10th, 2024 Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting. Do any members have any questions or comments on the minutes?
No comments, but I did view the meeting, and I am happy to make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Wonderful. If there are no further discussion, Madam Clerk, can we take a vote?
Member Basua.
Aye.
Committee Member Teran.
Yes.
Chair MacArthur.
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item D1, Public Works, subject trade service agreement with County First Fire, LLC, DBA County Fire Protection for fire extinguisher services. The recommendation from staff is that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with County First Fire LLC for a 2-year term from February 5, 2025 to February 4, 2027, for a total contract amount not to exceed $200,000 for fire extinguisher services in various city facilities, vehicles, and equipment. And Michael Wolf is the person to contact. Do any committee members have any questions of staff on this item? Yes, Councilmember. I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate the information and the staff report and the presentation that was put together by staff. Because Measure M prohibits the live presentation this evening, I was hoping that we could have staff just briefly summarize what we have in front of us just for the record and for the benefit of the public.
Councilmember MacArthur, Committee Member Tran, and Committee Member Basua. I'm Steve Hallett, Assistant Public Works Director, and I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Ted Quiros, our Facilities Manager.
Good evening.
Good
Ted
evening.
Quiros, Facilities. So basically for the specific item relative to fire extinguishers, basically this is a compliance issue that we have to maintain throughout the city, not only for specific facilities, but also for our vehicles that carry those in the event that there's a fire. So basically this is an ongoing regulatory requirement that we ensure that we provide qualified consultants to provide the service for us throughout the city on an ongoing annual basis. So given the size of the city, the size of the material that we have to manage requires a qualified contractor to do this, and this is what the proposal is for.
Thank you. And just so we can understand some of the scale that we're talking here, that we have a ballpark estimate of how many fire extinguishers across our facilities and within vehicles we're talking here?
I think we're talking thousands of fire extinguishers throughout the city, based on code, based on how many extinguishers. Like for instance, this particular facility would require several of them throughout the building, strategic locations, exterior to the building, interior to the building, things like that. So probably a couple thousand.
Okay, and I'm looking at one right now in the back of the room.
Exactly.
So, and my last question on that is, when we are looking at the trade services agreement with First Fire to do this work, if the question were to come up, well, why don't we just internally do this? Is it just the scale of the number of fire extinguishers and the expertise and I guess certifications involved that would require this?
That's correct. It requires certified technicians to perform the work, as well as getting certification through the California Fire Marshal to perform this work for this type of these fire extinguishers. So it's not an expertise that we have in-house, and that's why we're requesting this to be done through qualified, certified technicians.
Okay, I'd imagine expertise within our facilities. Folks, is that within the shop for facilities?
For facilities, not specifically to this. No, we have other trades that we maintain. This is just one of those trades that we would have to outsource. Correct.
Okay, no, I appreciate the responses and the summarization of this. Thank you. Those are my questions. And welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilwoman Basua?
No, I just wanted to, I guess I might turn into a question, but I just wanted to highlight something in the staff report. A request for bid went out, and there was only one bidder, which is I know it's not uncommon in this vendor role. And I just wanted to highlight that staff did its due diligence. It did what it needed to do. It verified that everything was accurate, and the recommendation is that we proceed with this contract.
If I can add something to that, because I think that's been a question that's been asked a couple times, and
Yeah.
and I'll say when we get to the next item that you'll see that the volume of contractors that we reached out to the next item was in the 20s, and we still got one bidder. So I think the concept of reaching out to more vendors will provide more bids. I want to say that that's not always the case, right?
Right, and I just wanted to make sure that I highlight that, because many times staff does a lot of work with getting these RFPs out, and we just get one bidder. And because staff is in the industry that they do, like our facility maintenance manager, he is familiar with cost. And if it's the recommendation of staff to move forward, I'm comfortable with that.
And if I may add, Chair,
Yes.
there are certain types of work that there are limited amount of contractors that do this kind of work. And so there's not a lot of vendors that do this kind of work. There's some activities that are niche in this kind of way where there's just not a lot of vendors that do it. So reaching out to multiple vendors may mean 2 or 3 because it's kind of a niche in terms of their activities.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers on this item?
Chair MacArthur, we have no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Any other, Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem, do you want to comment or anything further? Okay, is there a motion for this item?
I will move to move for the recommended action.
I will second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, can we call for a vote?
Committee Member Teran,
Yes.
Committee Member Basua,
Aye.
Chair MacArthur.
Yes,
The motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
thank you. The next item on the agenda is item D2. The subject public project agreement with Lank Kieltz Fire Protection Inc. for maintenance, inspections, and on-call for minor repairs for fire suppression systems. The recommendation is that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with Lank Kieltz Fire Protection Inc. for a 3-year term for a total contract amount not to exceed $700,000 for maintenance, inspections, and minor repairs for fire suppression systems at city-owned facilities. Do any committee members have any questions of staff on this item? Yeah, Councilwoman,
Oh, I'm gonna have lots of fun in this committee. Just for people that don't really understand, we just approved the fire extinguisher. Can you explain to them what the fire suppression system is? In less than 2 minutes, please.
Absolutely. Indeed. That's why we have fire extinguisher in the back. No, fire suppression systems are the sprinklers within the building. They're the lines that run through the facility. You could have different kind of systems depending on the type and size of the facility, where it has to be, maintained, tested, and then any repairs. Some systems are automatic. We have to make sure that the automatic system is functioning properly to ensure that in the event of a fire, that it does what it's supposed to do. We have deluge systems and other types of systems throughout the city. So this is really to maintain and manage those systems, and again, relatively compliance-related type of activity that we get inspected upon on an annual basis.
thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, and thank you for the response and the question, Councilwoman. That I'm wondering. I note in the staff report that there are 8 city facilities in needs of repair. Are we able to just summarize that briefly on what typically types of repairs might look like, or specifically what those facilities are looking at?
So for instance, right now we have, matter of fact, we have several outstanding items that we're looking to address, mainly around sprinkler head replacements. Some of them are corroded, some of them might have been bent or otherwise. There's also the system that it runs through in the automatic system to ensure that if the sprinkler head breaks, that the system will actually activate the water. So there's paddles and other mechanisms within those systems that also need repair. So we have a list. I just looked at about 11 facilities and systems that need to be looked at currently, and making sure that they're, meeting compliance first and foremost, but more importantly, that they're, do what they're supposed to do in the event of a fire.
Sure, thank you. And the last part I think is key in that we, no offense to Mr. Wolf here or any of our roads team, we can certainly defer roads and sidewalks and things and maybe playgrounds. But when it comes to fire suppression systems, maybe we could defer them, but it's one of those things of you want it to work when you actually need it. I mean, it'll be here for years or decades and we don't use it, but we want to make sure it does work when it's going to be needed, right?
That's correct. And there had been some things that we found throughout the inspections that might have been, maybe overlooked for a year or so, but now those are all being addressed, and that's why this particular contract's important for us to continue to maintain that compliance.
Sure. And my last question, just when we refer to city facilities, we certainly have, the facilities where we want to keep our staff safe. You know, if something were to happen and a fire suppression system was needed, you know, the building across the street, this building, our fleet management areas, our yards, the police station, but also our public-facing facilities, the libraries, the senior centers. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct, 100%.
All right, so everybody is kept safe in this.
As long as they can be, correct.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for providing us that overview of the difference between the suppression and also the maintenance
No.
of the fire extinguishers. Madam Clerk, are there any public comments on this item?
Thank you.
Chair MacArthur, we have no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Wonderful. If there are no further discussions, what's the wish of the committee members?
I will second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, I call for a vote.
Committee Member Basua?
Aye.
Committee Member Teran?
Yes.
Chair MacArthur?
Yes,
The motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
thank you. The next item on the agenda is item D3, lease and license agreement with the Oxnard Drainage District, number 1. The recommendation from staff is that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute a lease and license agreement with the Oxnard Drainage District 1 for initial term of 5 years with additional 5-year extensions, term provisions. Any council members have any questions of staff on this item? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. And this is one where I really wish we could have a live presentation on this, because it seems this is one that dates back quite a ways. And I was, when I came aboard this committee, this is an item that dates back a couple weeks, but I was educated on this, and this is something I pass by regularly, just given its proximity to my neighborhood. And I'm wondering if, I don't know if Mr. Hauser would be the one to do this, but if we could have a brief summary of this, just for the benefit of the public. What we're looking at, what this lease agreement is, some of the history behind it.
Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to do that. Good evening, committee chair and committee members. My name is Jan Hauser. I'm the wastewater division manager. So as you alluded to, this agreement is actually a renewal agreement that dates back to 1968. At the time, the city was developing, or developers were developing subdivision on the east side of Patterson Road, north of Doris, right? And they needed some stormwater management. And they had these ditches, these farm ditches, these agricultural ditches, and they came to an agreement that the city could discharge the runoff from these developments into these ditches, and the trade-off was we would maintain these ditches. So that's what we do along Doris from Patterson basically to Victoria, and 5th Street from Victoria over to the Edison Canal. And if you ever drove, and I'm sure you all have, those are, you know, pretty big ditches, right? They take a lot of flow. So we did that for 50 years. The agreement was for 50 years. And it was actually very outdated. It was very long, and it alluded to projects that didn't exist anymore. So through, you know, kind of many years and many people involved of negotiating, actually, you know, 5 or 6 years, we came to an agreement of a much simpler, shorter, smaller agreement with them. And so that's where we're at. The work we do on those, to maintain those ditches, is the same as it always has been. It doesn't change. So it's really all, everything is kind of status quo.
Okay, I appreciate the summary of that, just so that we have it on the record and folks are aware of it. That's my questions, Mayor. Thank you very much, Mr. Hauser. Appreciate the responses.
Thank you. Councilwoman Basua, any questions of staff?
I've got no questions on this item, thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any comments or public speakers on this item?
Chair MacArthur, we have no public speakers virtually or in person for this item. Thank you.
Thank you. What's the desire of the committee members on this item?
I'll move the recommended action.
I will second.
Okay. Madam Clerk, call for vote.
Chair MacArthur,
Yes.
Committee Member Teran,
Yes.
Committee Member Basua.
Aye.
The motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item D4, purchase order with municipal maintenance equipment for VACCON for wastewater division. The Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the purchasing agent to execute a purchase order with municipal maintenance equipment, MME, in the amount not to exceed $779,155.72 for the purchase of VAC-Con sewer cleaning vehicle mounted on a Freightliner truck chassis for the wastewater division. Do any committee members have any questions of staff on this item? Yes, Councilmember, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you. And I think we have Mr. Hauser and Mr. Beeman here both, it looks like. So on this one, looking at the particular asset we're having proposed here, can we give just a brief explanation about what this truck is and what its purpose and mission is within the wastewater?
Yeah, sure. Again, Jan Hauser, wastewater division manager. The wastewater division maintains and operates the entire wastewater system, which includes pump stations, the wastewater treatment plant, and over 400 miles of gravity sewers. So gravity sewers don't take care of themselves. You have to clean them on a regular basis, right? Which means that's what these trucks do. And they basically are jetters where we have a hose that goes down in the sewers, and we then suck all the debris out of the sewer that is settled in the sewer. And this, reduces and really eliminates, if we do it correctly, any backups or overflows, what we call SSOs or sanitary sewer overflows. So we try to do, like I said, we have a little over 400 miles of gravity sewer. We try to do 200 miles a year. So we clean every sewer in the city every 2 years, right? So to do that, we, through history, we have determined really we need 3 of these vehicles to do this. And they're custom built, they're very complex vehicles, they're very big, you've probably seen them around town, they're yellow. So we have 3 crews and three of these vehicles out on the road almost all the time, except for this one. Now the oldest one is out of service a lot, right? So that's the reason for replacement.
Thank you. And just so folks are aware, and I know, we can't show the visuals, but the truck has essentially what it looks like, a large vacuum hose on the front, and it's put in through our wastewater or our sewer system and does its job. Is that correct?
That's correct, right?
Okay. Just a couple items here regarding the request for this replacement vehicle. First, for folks who dive into the staff report, they may see that it's referenced that the vehicle in question has 63,000 inner city miles. Some folks may be out there in the public saying, well, my car has more miles than that. But I think that's not an apples to apples comparison of someone's Honda Accord versus this purpose-built vehicle. Is that correct?
That's correct. Really, these vehicles don't run a lot. I mean, they don't move a lot, right? We go from one location to the other within the city during the day, and then basically they sit there and run for, however long it takes to clean the sewer. So the majority of the time they're not moving, right? So 63,000 miles is actually a lot for a vehicle like this.
Yeah, and what is the typical service life we'd look at, either mileage-wise or time-wise for this type of vehicle? Do we know that?
So, I think we expect to get at least 10 years out of these vehicles, and we do a pretty good job of maintaining them and doing that. If you choose an approach to keep sending them to the shop and keeping them off the road and maintaining them, you can probably get 15 or 20. But the biggest problem is that they're not on the road, right? And we're not meeting, right now, we have not been meeting our goal of cleaning these sewers. And we really have a fantastic record of backups in the city. I mean, really, we have very few sewer backups.
Okay, thank you for that.
And it's due to, having these 3 trucks out on the road every day.
Okay, I think Mr. Wolf has something to add to that.
If I may, Chair,
Yes.
just a couple of things I would want to add to this, and I think Jan's being a little humble here. So if you look in the staff report, the number of sanitary sewer overflows that his team has had compared to what would be the state average is amazing. And that is due to his team's ability to clean the amount of sewer lines that his team is able to do. And I will say that this is actually, sanitary sewer overflows can be very expensive to the community, not just from a standpoint of potentially getting fines from the regulatory agency, but obviously that's, a liquid that we don't want in our streets, in our storm drains. And so, this is a piece of equipment that keeps those things from happening. I will also say that this is a piece of equipment that works in a very corrosive environment. We're talking about the type of environment that, again, is very corrosive. And so the amount of street miles is not how we measure how this vehicle is being used. And I will also say that for those of you who have come to Public Works Week, you have seen this vehicle. And you see that the vehicle itself is just an opportunity to get it from one place to the other. What's on this vehicle is all the hydraulics and the vacuum and the equipment that's on there that we use to clean and inspect. And so when you look at this 2012 vehicle that we're replacing, working in a very corrosive environment with all that hydraulics and all of that machinery, this is a vehicle, the current vehicle that we have, that's been very well used in a very corrosive environment.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Wolf. And just continuing on that line, you did bring up something that I think I didn't have this question in mind, but it just came to me. We're talking about our wastewater or sewer system. Is that different from our stormwater system, where when it rains, it goes into the vaults in the gutter, and then that will go through channels, and then it goes where it needs to go, right? Versus when you wash your hands, take a shower, when a toilet is flushed, those are completely separate systems. Is that correct,
Yeah,
Mr. Hauser?
that's correct. They're called separate systems, and the storm sewer system is completely separate from the sanitary sewer system. Yep.
Great, thank you for that. And my last question on this is also referenced in the staff report was a cost increase that we're looking at compared to 2023 model from before to now. And I see there's a few items that are highlighted as to what contributed to the cost increase. Can we just summarize that for the public?
Yeah, sure. And it's a real challenge for us. So we actually had this budgeted for last year, and the price came in, close to what it is. And I asked to have it delayed a year to see if costs might come down. But it's mostly due to just the increased cost of the vehicle and the manufacture of the vehicle. There is some improved equipment on board, including some that are directly related to safety. A lot of times these guys are on roads, on busy roads, right? Safety is incredibly important. So some of the improvements are related directly to safety. Yep.
Great, thank you very much. And yeah, I appreciate your responses on all of those things. I just wanted those to be stated for the record, and so folks can see that information and see how we land on these decisions. So I appreciate it. Thank you for the time to ask these questions, and thank you for the responses.
Absolutely. Councilwoman Basua, any questions?
I've got no questions.
Thank you. I know you mentioned that mileage is not a measurement. How does our three vehicles compare to the lifespan to other cities relative to our size? Is it about the same usage period?
So I haven't really compared against other cities, but I assume it's at least as good as other cities.
Okay.
But I haven't actually looked at that.
I appreciate that. Also, can you just, for the general public viewing, I'm glad to see that you went with Sourcewell, which is a procurement process. It's a cooperative. Can you just maybe explain for the viewing public what Sourcewell is and how that benefits us as a city when we go out to procure a vehicle like this, and what advantages it provides to us as a city?
Sure. Sourcewell is a procurement methodology where certain things are bid nationally, right? And they're selected by somebody, but then they're made available for anybody who participates in the Sourcewell program. So this is, this vehicle or this company that we're buying it from was selected based on a bidding process, right? And then because we're members of Sourcewell, we also get a 10% discount off the vehicle, so we get some discounts also. So it makes procurement easier. It was bid, and we get a discount. So
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Wolf.
If I can add, Chair, is part of that advantage is that the companies that use Sourcewell like it because they get a lot of bulk purchases, and so they're able to provide benefits to folks like us, to cities like us, because they see a lot of purchases that happen in bulk, where if they just bid it for us, they would be potentially only selling one of these vehicles, where if they're selling these across either the state or the nation, obviously they get the advantage of potentially selling a lot more of them. So the advantage of this one for them is potentially being able to sell them in bulk.
Thank you for that. Yes, Councilwoman, is there anything? No? Okay.
I just would like to say one more thing.
Absolutely.
Michael commented about the team that does such a good job. That team is led by Ray Trevino, and Ray Trevino is the guy that makes this happen. So he's super important. He's dedicated to the city, dedicated to the job, and he's the one, actually, not me, not us, but it's really Ray. So if you ever meet Ray or see Ray, thank him for all the work he does.
Absolutely. Thank you for giving them those kind of remarks and attributing the success to him on this topic. Thank you for that. Madam Clerk, are there any public comments on this item?
Chair MacArthur, we have no public speakers virtually or in person for this item. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no more discussion on this item by committee members, what's the pleasure of the committee on this item?
I'll move the recommended action.
Okay, a call for a vote?
Committee Member Teran,
Yes.
Committee Member Basua,
Yes.
and Chair MacArthur.
Yes,
The motion carries 3-0.
thank you. The next item on the agenda is item D5. The subject, multiple agreements for on-call professional engineering services for water, wastewater, and recycled water systems. 10-minute presentation. The recommendations that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute the following agreements, each with initial term of 1 year from February 5th, 2025 to February 4th, 2026, with an option for 4 consecutive 1-year period extensions ending February 4th, 2030 for on-call professional engineering services for water, wastewater, and recycled water systems. And then the various agreements 1 through 10. Do any committee members have any questions for staff on this item? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, it's just a very quick question. We have a number of agreements on the recommendation here. And I just want to know if we can just make clear for the public that these are, from what I can see, all of them are not to exceed amounts. And so we're looking at these agreements where these are on-call services, where perhaps we have, if this passes tonight and then goes to council for approval, where we may have one of these agreements where they use $250,000 over the course of the agreement period. And we may have one that goes up to $900,000 or, to the not to exceed amount, and everything in between. We could use $1 over the next couple of years or the agreement period. But can we explain the difference in that, of the not to exceed amount versus an actual contracted amount?
Certainly. Good evening, committee chair, committee members. Tim Beeman, Assistant Director of Public Works. And so I've added into the staff report in here some of our historical usage on these. Now, we did it a little bit differently. The last time around, it was for 3 years, and we had varying agreement totals. But the way this works now is we've gone uniform across, and it's for over a period of 5 years. And so we do also comply within this with our task order process, with our procurement policy. And so there are limits on what we could do within this task order process in terms of a dollar amount. And so in the historical usage, you will see that, yes, some of them were used far less than others. And that's based on a number of different things, including interest in the project, the type of work they do, the type of projects that we have coming up. So some of these aren't even necessarily for a CIP project. They can be anything from a preliminary study all the way up to some design and documentation for an actual CIP.
And then I think Mr. Wolf has a...
Yeah, just to add on to that, so those are some of the examples that these would be driven by the on-call process. So these aren't a guaranteed contract. These are on-call contracts that are driven by a task order. So as Mr. Beeman mentioned, so we may have somebody that we want to do a preliminary evaluation on a new process that doesn't guarantee them the full amount of this contract. It may issue a task order for $20,000, and that may be the only task order that we write them for the full 5 years of the contract if we extend the contract for the full amount of time that we have. Or we may issue them multiple task orders across the 5 years that we have available underneath this contract, up to $1 million, depending on how much work we have available to them, how many projects that we're working on, how much studies we need to do. Maybe new regulations come out, maybe new requirements come out that we have to analyze. And so these give us that flexibility to have expertise that we don't need every day available to us when those things happen, when those new regulations come out, or when those new processes come out, or when we want to evaluate a process that we don't need to have that person sitting idle and not doing anything as a staff member because they're not needed all the time. So we have these folks that are sort of in the bullpen, if you will, if you want to use that analogy, and we can issue a task order for them to come on board when we need those things looked at. And so this is the typical way for us to supplement some of our technical staff members for things that come out that are very technically oriented or very highly regulated processes that are not day-to-day activities.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Wolf. And you actually answered my next question before I got to ask it, so even better. And it's just to reiterate the point that similar to the fire extinguisher discussion we just had, some of these particular folks who we're looking to initiate these agreements with or sign these agreements with may have a level of expertise or certifications or some qualifications that make agreements with them more appropriate than hiring someone on with that level of qualifications who may not be utilized all the time, as you had alluded to. And I can say in doing consulting work myself that if I were asked to come in and do something that was very low level, but my day rate or my hourly rate is far more than what that level of work is kind of like, well, I have these qualifications to do, and I'm happy to just hang out. I like hanging out with you folks, but this is what my expertise area is, and so we want to get our bang for our buck on this. And if we do these on call versus hiring a person with that level of certification, that kind of makes a lot more financial sense. Is that what we're looking at?
Correct, and I'm a licensed civil engineer, but I don't think Jan wants me to design his biofiltration. So again, we want to make sure that we have industry leading folks that are doing this evaluation, these reviews, these things that change a lot. I mean, the technology in these wastewater plants, these water facilities change a lot, and so we want to make sure that we have folks available to us because we want to make sure our systems are operating as efficiently as possible, and I think these are the things that allow us to have that available to us.
All right. I think the colloquial term is this is their jam, right? All right. Those are my questions. Thank you, Mr. Beeman. Thank you, Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. Councilwoman Basua, any questions?
No, nothing. I just want to make sure that I say, just for the public's view, that this is only for the 3 divisions of wastewater, water, and recycled.
Yes, so I should clarify on that. So while we specify that for the water, wastewater, and recycled water systems, the scope of work does include anything that could be electrical controls, things that we have in other parts of the city. Mm-hmm. So one of the examples on here is the number 1 with AECom. So they're an existing on-call who we already have, and they actually helped us, their electrical portion of their company. They're a large national firm. I think they're just under 100,000 people, or worldwide firm rather. And they actually did the design for the police department generator that's went out to bid and was approved by council and is going to construction in a short amount of time. So while these particular firms, many of them are specific to wastewater utility work. Some of these larger national firms, they do a wide range of engineering, and if it's within the scope and it's required within the city, we will have them help out with that work.
So not necessarily will we use them just for those 3 divisions. We can use them for other task orders as needed.
As long as it's within the defined scope of work of the agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers on this item?
Chair MacArthur, we have no public speakers virtually or in person for this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there no further questions or discussion? What's the pleasure of the committee members on this item?
I'll move the recommended action.
I'll second.
Okay. Can we get a vote?
Thank you. Committee Member Teran,
Yes.
Committee Member Basua,
Aye.
Chair MacArthur.
Yes,
The motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
thank you. We'll move to item D6. Subject multiple agreements for on-call geotechnical engineering, environmental material testing and inspection services, professional engineering services. The recommendation is that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute the following 4 agreements, each with an initial term of 1 year from February 19, 2025 to February 18, 2026, with options for exercising 4 consecutive 1-year period extensions ending February 18, 2030 for on-call professional engineering geotechnical services. And there is the 4 agreements below. Any committee members have any questions reference these agreements for staff? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Kessler. Just similar to the previous item, these are also, I've noticed, not to exceed agreements, and same concept we're looking at as we just had in the previous item. Is that correct?
Yes. Good evening, Chair and
Good evening.
committee members. I'm Morgan Kessler, city engineer, hailing from the Public Works Department. And yes, what you have before you is very similar to what you just considered with Mr. Beeman. It's each one of these agreements can be considered a not to exceed contract with each one of these vendors. Yes.
Okay. And can you just give us a very brief examples here of what typical geotechnical environmental services might include?
Yeah, certainly. As you know, we execute a lot of projects associated with the CIP and also non-CIP projects as well. And for many of those, you encounter situations where you need work done that's associated with the earth, with the soil, with what we call geotechnical engineering. Also, with many of our projects, we have both regulatory and exploratory work that falls kind of under the broader term of environmental engineering, which essentially means testing for chemicals and contaminants and things like that. A huge part of this the service that we're looking for is for materials testing, construction materials testing. We do a lot of paving work, a lot of work that involves concrete and steel and construction materials like that. And to ensure we're getting a quality product that meets the specifications of our contract, we need to have somebody take a sample of those construction materials, take them back to a laboratory and test them to see if they comply with our specifications. We don't have materials testing capability internally to the city of Oxnard. So this is a service that, if we want this quality control testing done, we have to contract it out to a specialized materials engineer.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are my questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Kessler.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilwoman Basua, any questions for staff on this
No,
item?
thank you.
Thank you. Any public speakers on this item?
Chair MacArthur, we have no public speakers virtually or in person for this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Given that, what is the desire of the committee on this item?
I move the recommended introduction.
I will second.
Madam Clerk, I call for vote.
Committee Member Basua,
Aye.
Committee Member Teran,
Yes.
Chair MacArthur.
Yes,
The motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
thank you. The next item on the agenda is item D7. Subject multiple agreements for on-call architectural design professional engineering services. The recommended action is that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute the following agreements, each with an initial term of 2 years from February 19th, 2025 to February 18th, 2027, with an option for 3 consecutive one-year period extensions ending February 18th, 2030 for on-call professional engineering services for architectural design. And it's agreements 1 through 4. Any committee members have any questions of staff on this item? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. And I know this one is similar to what we just talked about, so I won't belabor the point again, just regarding not to exceed amounts for these agreements. But similar to a question that Councilwoman Basua had earlier, I see that it is referenced in the presentation that we had 11 proposals come forward for the RFP process. And I'm just wondering if this particular type of work tends to lend itself to more individuals or more firms that would apply in this type of process versus something that might be a little bit more niche, such as the fire items that we had earlier. I don't know if Mr. Wolf or Mr. Kessler might have some insight into that.
I will say that most agencies that I've worked for do these kinds of on-call contracts, and it's not uncommon to see quite a few firms submit for on-call contracts because they're typically set for multiple years. And that's done for many reasons. The biggest reason is there's a lot of time that's put into developing the RFP, a lot of time to evaluating the RFP. And part of what we're trying to do here is save that time. We want to do it once for our staff to be able to save that time so that we're not doing that process every time for all the projects. We're doing it upfront once, going through that competitive process as allowed through our procurement process or policies. And so most of the architects, landscape architects, they want to get on our on-call so that they can continue to get services or get projects through us. When I was working in the private engineering world, we often submitted proposals for multiple cities to try to make sure we got onto the on-call contracts, because that is the way to get work from cities. And so these are the kinds of RFPs that we will see multiple proposals from lots of different, not multiple proposals, but proposals from multiple vendors or firms, because we don't often go out. It's not something that we go out with every year. Because as you notice, this is going to be 1 year with 3 consecutive 1-year extensions. So we won't be back out probably for 4 more years. So this lends itself to seeing a lot of proposals come in.
Thank you. And I would imagine there's probably a larger market for architectural work for this, landscape architects or otherwise, versus folks who do fire extinguisher inspections. That's my guess.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Now, those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Thank you, Mr. Kessler. Madam Clerk, are there any callers or public speakers on this item?
Chair MacArthur, we have no speakers virtually or in person for this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Given that there are no further discussion from committee member, what's the desire of the committee on this item?
I will move the recommend action.
I will second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, I'll call for a vote.
Chair MacArthur,
Yes.
Committee Member Teran,
Yes.
Committee Member Basua.
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Unless a member has an item for a future agenda, yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. No future agenda item requests. I just wanted to take the opportunity, and I think this committee is probably finally the appropriate place to do so, to thank you, Mr. Wolf, and anyone in your team who had to do with the installation of an AED in the back of this room. It's something I had noted coming onto council, and I think we had one in the back here. But it's certainly a great assurance for the public to know that if there ever were an emergency that required the use of an AED, that we have one here available, and just like the fire extinguisher that's back there as well. So I just wanted to thank you and your team, whether it's facilities or whoever was involved, for the work on that and getting that installed.
I will check on that and make sure that that kudos gets to them, so I'll pass it along. Thank you.
Thank you.
It should be mounted right here.
For the city manager, okay.
Yeah, thank you. Speaking of kudos, Ms. Woods, I think we should get some kudos for moving up this committee up to 6:45, right? I think it's, Madam Clerk, please put that in the minutes.
Every day, you will get kudos. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We can't thank you enough. Yeah.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bissell, any closing comments? No? Okay. Well, if there's nothing further business on this agenda, and without any objection, I call for this meeting to be adjourned. Thank you.